What's good, cannabis investors? I hope you're all hanging in there, and I'm back to recap the good news in the world of cannabis, because while it might not seem like there is much, because some forces at play want it to appear that way, there's plenty of good stuff, including studies, record state sales numbers, and many, many more things to cover. So with that, while it's promising to see that Trump has already been very active in getting many things done, is he going to keep his word from 2 tweets of September and October of last year? Who knows? Maybe it was lip service to get elected, although you have to have more faith in him based on what you've seen thus far than the Biden admin and their whole 4 years combined. And so will DOGE, similar to uncovering what USAID was doing and basically making many NGOs around the world actual U.S. government organizations, but will DOGE also unearth the corruption at the DEA with regards to the proposed rule for cannabis rescheduling from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3? Will he finish what the Biden admin started? Now, obviously, cannabis should be outright descheduled. It does not belong in this silly rescheduling categorization that governments made up in the first place. And according to Grok 3, it is likely. So take from that what you will. Of course, we've got time, and we'd like to see something done sooner than later, given that we've waited however many years already. Well, there's no direct evidence as of right now for DOGE investigating the DEA for corruption in relation to cannabis, although they are keeping a very close eye on the DOJ for a lot of fuck-ups that they've been responsible for, and DEA is part of the DOJ. All that to say is if they continue at this pace of looking into agencies and trying to find dirt, they're likely to do so. But that's what a fucking AI says, and AI is wrong half of the time. So take from that what you will. Let me know what you think in the comments. But the thing I'm happiest about with the scandal of USAID, or I'm not necessarily happiest, but I'm happy. And so while there's no direct evidence of DOGE currently investigating the DEA for anything cannabis related, although they have a very close eye on the DOJ for a lot of the shit that they've been responsible for, and of course DEA is part of the DOJ, all that to say is if the administration keeps up at the pace they're at, they're likely to uncover something and maybe do something about it, more likely than the Biden admin. But who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments. But out of this whole USAID scandal, which essentially highlighted that many non-government organizations are actually government organizations pushing an agenda that they're funded to push, fascinating though to find. Thank you, Mark Landers, for highlighting this. You know, how do these clowns that we've kept a close eye on for the last few years get by? Lying through their teeth, because prohibition sadly pays well. Quick search of USAID database finding that Kevin Sabet of SAM got one-time payment of this amount in 2023, and according to this person, I could be wrong, but they say his salary is much bigger and was exposed a year ago with Luke as well. So thanks, Mark Landers, for sharing that. Again, all these links will be in the comments, but one more from the Dank Informer. These guys do great research, so thank you guys for digging deep. But examining Sam's, Kevin Sabet, and Luke Nelly Furtado's nonprofit NGA data on Data Republican, we found some interesting stuff. So Kevin Sabet sits on the board of Dare America, and this highlights the payment that we showed in the last feature, and so I'll put all these links in the comments. But then Luke Nelly Furtado made $220K from these two anti-cannabis nonprofits in the year of 2023 alone for $158,742 and $60,000. So you wonder how they do it. It pays pretty well to be delusional and to spread bullshit. Always a tough pill to swallow, and links for these will be in the comments if you want to check them out. But fortunately, if we had any more hope left, it's the fact that someone with common sense and wants to end cannabis prohibition is leading the HHS for once, as opposed to a dude that thought he was a lady for the last 4 fucking years. And so, good news, RFK has been sworn in, confirmed, and is now leading HHS. And from Bloomberg, they highlight that he calls for thorough studies of cannabis. Now, cannabis is obviously the most studied plant probably on the planet when you look at the 37,000 studies on PubMed. It's crazy actually how many studies, and most of them point to it being a miracle medicine. Very few of them point to having any adverse health impacts. However, of course, the mainstream media, funded by pharmaceutical companies, don't want you to know that. So we're going to go through many great studies highlighting, you know, the public health victory it'll be when we finally end cannabis prohibition. All that to highlight, though, could this be the start of a narrative shift? You know, kind of finally having to admit the health effects since it's legal in so many places and medicinal for many reasons? We'll find out. But he, in the past, has called for federal legalization of cannabis. And so what is his plan going forward? According to Town Hall, he plans to tackle the opioid crisis the only way that a non-politician would do, and that is effectively ending cannabis prohibition for once and for all. And ideally, he would just deschedule it outright. He's essentially just going to finish what the Dems have started, move it off Schedule 1, but then collect federal taxes on it. I think that's nonsense. Let the states collect the taxes that they're already collecting. This is, again, more power to the federal government, which only those in the government. And I guess once you finally get into the government, get your job, and then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you were never actually giving back that much control. Either way, will he carry through with this? I think the odds are better he will than the Dems, but will he do it in 2025, 2026? Who knows? So let me know what you think in the comments. But on to the many, many great studies that highlight cannabis's promising effects. The first one from PubMed, February 2025, so a new one, recreational cannabis laws and fills of pain prescriptions in the privately insured. Fascinating one. Pause to read the objective method and results if you're interested, but the conclusions speak for themselves. These results suggest that substitution of cannabis for traditional pain medications increases as the availability of recreational cannabis increases, which is a good thing because if you have 100,000 people dying from opioid overdoses, you want to try and reduce the number of people relying on pain prescription medications with harmful side effects. There appears to be a small shift once recreational cannabis becomes legal, but we see stronger results once users can purchase cannabis at rec dispensaries because the medicine is the same fucking thing as long as it's sold out of a legal outlet and you're getting the female cannabis plant. The decrease in opioids and marginal increase in non-opioid pain medications may reflect patients substituting opioids with cannabis and non-opioid pain medications either separately or concomitantly. Reductions in opioid prescriptions fills stemming from recreational cannabis legalization may prevent exposure to opioids in patients with pain and lead to decreases in the number of new opioid users, which is beneficial for all those that have suffered harmful side effects from opioids, not so beneficial for pharmaceutical companies. Rates of opioid use disorder, again, will decrease it, and related harms. Massive public health victory overall. And that's just the first one. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's another one from PubMed, another one from Feb 2025. Medical cannabis for patients over age 50, a multi-site prospective study of patterns of use and health outcomes. And so they looked at 299 participants. I again invite you to pause to read the juice of it and the details, but just to highlight the conclusion. In this cohort of older patients, most of whom suffered from pain-related conditions, medical cannabis seemed to be a safe and effective treatment. Of course. More safe and effective than that experimental gene therapy we were pushed for however many years. Most patients experienced clinically significant improvements in pain, sleep, and quality of life and reductions in co-medication. The cost per quality adjusted life year was well below the standard for traditional pharmaceuticals, so it's even cheaper to medicate yourself with cannabis for pain than it is pharmaceuticals. Who doesn't want more money in their pocket? And no serious adverse events were reported, suggesting that cannabis is relatively safe. Of course it is. And cost-effective therapeutic option for adults dealing with age-related health conditions. No shit. And so we love to see studies like this. More and more are going to come, but hey, buckle up. It doesn't stop. Feb 2025, cannabis retail store density and county-level mortality from injury in the state of Washington from 2009 to 2020. So you can pause to read the background and detail, basically what they looked at in the numbers, but no significant effects were found for motor vehicle accidents, homicide, or suicide. So really no big increase or decrease, it sounds like. Conclusions: county cannabis retail store density in Washington was associated with reduced accidental poisoning, of course, because cannabis isn't a poison, so you can't actually be poisoned by something that's not a poison, and opioid mortality, while suicide and motor vehicle accident mortality rates did not appear to change, which means they didn't just spike or go up overnight. Results do not support any harmful effects on mortality from cannabis store expansion in Washington counties. Read it and weep. The more cannabis you have, shit doesn't change much because alcohol's still there. But all that to say, speaking of reductions, from Feb 2025 as well, and one of those more counterintuitive ones that goes against all the stereotypes that have been bullshit, weight loss and therapeutic metabolic effects of tetrahydrocannabivarin THCV-infused mucoadhesive strips. And so an interesting one, I invite you to pause to read, but just to highlight 44 subjects in this one. The study evaluated the efficacy of two different doses of combined THCV and CBD. The first one was 8 milligrams of THCV, 10 milligrams of CBD. And the higher dose was 16 milligrams THCV and 20 milligram CBD, taken, once daily for 90 days. Now get this, use of the strip, the combination THCV and CBD, was associated with statistically significant weight loss, decreases in abdominal girth, systolic blood pressure, and total and LDL cholesterol. The study was limited by small sample sizes, but highlights that the higher dose of the combination was superior for weight loss compared to the lower dose. Both sets of results differed from placebo in a way that was strategically significant. And so, very fascinating. Again, why we need to deschedule outright to learn a whole lot more, but Doesn't sound like any adverse effects we've come across just yet. So if you find any of those studies, put them in the comments so I can see them and evaluate them. But February 2025, another one. Cannabinoid protects lungs against inflammation and apoptosis in a rat model of blunt chest trauma, yada, yada, yada. All that to point out, you can pause to read. This was in a rat, not in humans. And since cannabis has never killed a human being, why are we still doing studies in rats and mice? Well, because of the status quo and because of the bullshit. But all that to say, conclusion. CBD reduces lung damage in lung contusions caused by blunt chest trauma through its anti-inflammatory and anti-apoptotic effects. Fascinating. More detailed studies, of course, are needed, but I bet you were not expecting that. It helps the lungs, despite, usually having to smoke it to consume it. So, of course, there's different ways. PubMed, continuing. This one's an older one from June 2024, Masking the Cannabis Paradox. In-hospital outcomes of cannabis users admitted with acute myocardial infarction over a 20-year period in the U.S. Now, I might have featured this one, months back since it's from June 2024. Pause to read all the details, but man, the conclusion here again speaks for itself. As among patients aged 18 to 80 years admitted to hospitals with acute myocardial infarction between 2001 and 2020 in the U.S., cannabis use, so if you used cannabis versus if you'd never touched it and used maybe alcohol or any other substance, was associated with lower risk of cardiogenic shock, acute ischemic stroke, cardiac arrest, PCI use, and effectively death in hospital mortality. So you can't make that shit up. Pretty mind-blowing. Again, should make you more curious than want to cut out all discussion. And one interesting thing to note is just how myocarditis was a serious side effect of the COVID gene therapy. And so I just wonder if we've been looking at this from 2020 to now, and I know I featured many studies that were done around 2021, 2022, but what kind of an impact, using cannabis during that has at reducing, the severity of whatever sort of side effects you end up having, or possibly saving your life, reducing in-hospital mortality. So I'm just thinking out loud. We have some studies. I just hope we get more, but I'll try and, show them on the screen or link them in the comments for reference. Well, from Frontiers, another older one from September 16th, 2024, but rooted in therapeutics. And this is interesting. The cannabis root. Had no idea. Comprehensive analysis of cannabis sativa root extracts reveal potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and bactericidal properties. Fascinating. So does that mean, sativa root tea could be a promising thing? I don't know. Maybe. These findings demonstrate the remarkable antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial activities of cannabis roots, the part of the plant we discard without thinking anything of it, supporting their traditional use and challenging their perception as mere waste. So yeah, of course that can be recycled and used, turned into maybe rope or fabric, but the study highlights, of course, the details are here if you want to grab the link in the comments, but love to see it. From January 6th, 2025, CBD targets colorectal cancer cells via cannabinoid receptor 2, independent of common mutations. That's fascinating because I'm pretty sure cannabinoid receptor 2 is in your brain, and colorectal cancer cells would be near your colon. Correct me if I'm wrong. All that to point out, we know CBD is a miracle compound. Together, you can pause to read all the details if you're interested and understand this sort of technical breakdown, but together these results demonstrated that CBD could be effective for CRC regardless of the underlying mutation through CB2 receptor activation. So if you understand more, let me know in the comments because, of course, some of these are more technical and complicated, so I'm just scratching the surface. Looking at proteomic and metabolomic analysis reveal the antibacterial mechanism of CBD against gram-positive bacteria. And I should probably know what gram-positive bacteria is, but just to run you through the highlights, CBD-induced adverse effects on cell wall and membrane structure. Sounds promising. CBD disrupts the biosynthesis of primary and secondary metabolites and metabolism in bacteria, so disrupts its ability to probably grow and prosper. CBD is promising antibacterial agent for gram-positive bacteria. And so these are examples, Bacillus licheniformis, Staphylococcus aureus, and yeah, I don't want any of those. So CBD, very promising. The significance, it's crucial to find alternatives to antibiotics to mitigate the impacts of pathogenic bacteria on food safety and reduce the use of antibiotics. CBD could potentially have antibacterial effects and replace, the humans' now common reliance on antibiotics, the over-reliance, I should say. And so, man, very promising. So that's it for promising studies. Can't find any studies with adverse effects, so whichever ones Bloomberg are talking about, if you are able to get behind the paywall, please let me know or send me those links, as I'd love to check it out. But more on the industry. U.S. cannabis projected to employ over 800,000 by 2029. And while the number has sat around 400,000 for a long time, it does seem like there's more growth to be had and more opportunity to come as we hopefully prepare for Cannabis 3.0 in the U.S. So more info here if you're interested. We'd love for this to be the truth, but it's 4 years out. Who knows however many number is going to be employed. Fact is, though, financial discrimination is un-American, and ultimately one of the only legal forms of discrimination still allowed, especially by the government towards citizens, is cannabis related, and it's absolutely horseshit. And so just some stats here from FlowHub. Thank you for summarizing this all. For those of you that don't know, I know if you watch my channel, you would know this already, but it's outrageous. Highlighting that, of course, the biggest criminal racket is the government. But imagine being in the industry. Bank account was shut down. Almost 50% of people have had to deal with that. Charged higher fees for financial services just because of the line of work they're in. Almost 50%. Unable to open a bank account. Denied small business loans or lines of credit. Denied a personal business credit application. Denied payment processing services. Blatant discrimination that belongs nowhere in America anymore. How has this been allowed to go on? And where's the justice going to be at any point, right? And so on to sales, though, because I know this is what you all care about a lot as well. So from February 20th, U.S. legal sales topped $2 billion in January from the Marijuana Herald. That's pretty impressive. And just for a full breakdown of the list down here, $2.06 billion in total for the first month of the year. Sales figures from Alaska and New Jersey were not included due to lack of readily available data for January, while Delaware and Minnesota have legalized rec cannabis but have not yet launched licensed sales, which is a huge missed opportunity. All that to say, if you're interested, this is the breakdown state by state, sales in the millions, and then the year that they legalized for adult use and began sales. And so a little bit more down here if you're interested. As always, links will be in the comments. Now, I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because I got to get out of here in a bit. But from New Cannabis Ventures, Michigan cannabis sales begin 2025 badly. What a title by a man who hates the industry that he literally runs a website for. And all that to point out, sure, yes, sales slumped in January. They were up 1.9% from a year earlier, so the lowest point last year. January slightly up from there, despite, few record-setting months earlier in the year, as opposed to later in the year that was to be expected. Now, you can focus on those details. Of course, when you can buy the same medicinal plant out of a rec shop versus medicinal, you just go to the rec shop because it ends up being cheaper. Of course, that's going to eat into the profits and prices, but that's good for the consumer overall. All that to point out, what's most impressive is in 2024, the whole industry still grew by 7.6% and sales totaled $3.29 billion in Michigan. That's pretty fucking impressive. So we'll keep a close eye on one of the most successful markets in the country, even though January slumped a bit. While Ohio cannabis sales reached $509 million since August 6th when they launched for adult use, resulting in $62 million in tax revenue. It's fantastic as long as that money is reallocated properly. But yeah, sorry, August 7th, not the 6th. I might have misspoken there. So all the details here if you're interested. $2.4 billion from 22.7 million transactions. Very interesting. And so details all found here. Wow, just wanted to highlight this one from January as sales hit a record 93 million. And so, of course, that's mostly recreational, some medicinal. But this one's behind a paywall too. So unfortunately, can't get the rest of it, but just wanted to share that figure with you. While Florida medical sales hit 160 million in Jan, highest since May of 2024. And so for a medical-only market, seeing continued growth and considering that January was a record month after December, which is typically always the record month, fuck yeah, Florida. Good fucking job. And so their industry recorded 160 million in sales. Good fucking job, Florida. And so more details down here if you are interested. This is, again, according to Headset. January was the first month since May where medical sales in Florida topped 160 million too. So people wanted their weed to start 2025. New year, new you. I'm feeling optimistic with the new administration, but we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments. Well, a few other markets, Headset being the easiest way to show. And, of course, if you wanted to grab this link and go through any others, feel free to do so. But from January 2025... we're seeing Missouri 120.58 million, year-over-year growth of 9.8%. So we love to see that, and that's combined medical and adult use as well. So more details down here if you're interested, but I advise you to grab the comments if you want to go through those yourself. While New York had to show this one just because did not find it anywhere else, but for January 2025, since they've started unlocking and opening stores after all the lawsuits and 3 years of gaslighting their own citizens, 121.91 million combined, 403.6% year-over-year growth. We miss seeing numbers like this, but, we can only see numbers like this because they decided to shoot themselves in the foot and fuck up their market for so long. up until they had to make this positive change. And so very promising. And we'll keep a close eye on New York as we move forward. Well, from Canna Investments, I believe this is the most up-to-date data we've got on New Jersey. And again, nothing from January. It's only showing the 12 months of 2024. Consistent growth, but price declining quickly, as we see in most maturing markets. Big reason behind the struggle we've seen from certain operators who took outsized share at the initial launch, when I guess that wasn't the smartest thing to do in hindsight. It's always 2020. Well, for detail, adult use product sales mix by product category last 12 months. Bud flower, 41%. Breakdown of the rest here. Adult use bud flower price per gram. Of course, you can see it going down as more and more stores open and competition increases. Adult use sales by month, previous 12 months. So from 64 in Jan of 2024 to 92 million in December. While prices are going down, that's likely driven by more buyers, more demand, and more dispensaries. And then, of course, the breakdown for you all there. Links will be in the comments. While Missouri, now the 5th largest adult use cannabis market in the nation. And so while we highlighted a promising January, I didn't even realize the show me states sold more cannabis than Colorado and Arizona. Not them combined, though, but just saying more than Colorado independently and more than Arizona independently, for a total of $1.46 billion in 2024, representing one of the more robust markets in the nation, both overall and relative to its population. You love to see it. So there's a lot of great detail here on what Missouri is doing right. I'd say Missouri is one of the most effective and best ones thus far. I think Ohio might be on another good pace, similar to Maryland, which we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, like any new state coming online going forward, whether that's Virginia, Minnesota, Delaware, Florida, Pennsylvania, you want to follow Missouri's blueprint, really, if anything. And so Maryland bringing sales total to $94.5 million in Jan 2025. All-time revenue now up to $1.78 billion. Absolutely love to see it. And so with that, all these details down here if you are interested. But don't say Americans don't want to vote for legal cannabis with their dollars, because they certainly do. And given the opportunity, they continue to do so. Well, from MJ Biz Daily, adult use cannabis sales topped $1.6 billion in 2024. That's according to data from the state's Cannabis Control Commission, which noted that rec cannabis sales in December reached $140.2 million, and that made it the 3rd highest monthly total for Massachusetts since legalizing in 2018. The other top sales months were August of 2024, which was the biggest record-breaking month for most markets in 2024, which was different from past years, which was always Christmas in December. But July and August were huge moneymakers for most states in 2024. So interesting trend change there. More details here if you're interested. As always, all these links will be in the comments. While on to Illinois, finally got an update for you, and I was looking for January's numbers, but as of February 5th, they could only update December's. And so while Illinois had a lot of high hopes, this market is sadly turning into one of the shittier ones. Mainly because in December, I thought we would see December 2024 sales exceed December 2023 sales. And what we ended up seeing was more items sold, 4.5 million in December for 153.2 million total. But in 2023, December, we ended up surpassing it by 700,000, 153.9. So a little disappointing that December did not outpace. Now, I do think a lot of this is people in Illinois just driving to Missouri, Ohio, and markets around it that have cheaper cannabis than what Illinois is taxing them for. But yeah, the growth is sadly just slowing. 2023 totals $1.63 billion. 2024 totals $1.72 billion. So they got to figure something out. I'm sure prices are going down because more stores are opening, but come on, Illinois. You're shit in the bed. On to New Mexico, looking at their sales for 2024. Now, for whatever reason, the numbers are not populating here as they normally would be. So we've got the all-time sales data here. And with that, just wanted to point out that December sales did jump up from November, more in line with October, 37.2 million, a little more than October. Now, I don't have the full number from Jan to December. However, you can clearly tell that from January to December, sales were collectively higher in 2024 than they were in 2023. So love to see those in New Mexico as well voting for legal cannabis with their dollars. More data here if you're interested. As always, these links will be in the comments. But the last market to show you, surprise, as Canadian cannabis sales soared in December. I was certainly not expecting that, although I definitely did contribute. I did notice at the end of day Friday, something massively spiked, I think led by Tilray for the most part. So do people know something that we don't? Could the tide finally be turning? I don't know. Let's fucking hope after 4 years of misery. But all that to say, StatsCan released this data up from November levels by 10% for a record 499.7 million Canadian dollars. So, looks promising, I would say. Of course, cannabis is cheap and plentiful here, so that's why we're happy to spend more. But yeah, that is certainly a big jump up from November. We'll take it. And so with that, a breakdown of provinces. I mean, you can take a look at the snapshot here, grab the links, but just to break it down for you easily, in Ontario, the largest province by population, sales were up 11.2% from November and up 4% from a year ago, while Alberta, the second highest sales driving province, not the second highest population though, that's Quebec. Quebec just won't open stores. They're dumb. Either way, Alberta, which is the second largest province, was up 19.2% from November and up 16% from a year ago. So thank you, Alberta, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Quebec was up 10.1% from November and up 9% from a year ago with their 50-some stores with 8 million people. Come on, Quebec. Just do math better. While British Columbia was down 2.7% from November and it rose 10% from a year ago in December. So we'll take that. Breakdown here if you are interested. And so last few stories, MSO News to round it off. Curaleaf to report fourth quarter and full year 2024 financial and operational results after market close on March 3rd. And so I think Green Thumb was the only other one to announce this previously. I might have also just missed many of the announcements from it, but I'll probably be back in a couple weeks to recap these sales numbers. But so a few of the stories that I caught: Trulieve to open another dispensary in Columbus, Ohio, likely will be adult use, so good for them. That opening celebration is going to be Friday the 21st, which was yesterday, so good on you, Trulieve, as well. As a shareholder, I'm happy to see them expanding into more adult use markets, also adding to what they already have there in Ohio. While another one from VRNO strengthens South Florida retail footprint with opening of MOV North Miami Beach, the company's 80th dispensary in Florida. And so, of course, more details here, trying to open up in prime locations where you're going to get a lot of foot traffic and see possibly increased growth over time. So more details from VRNO here if you're interested, making it their 153rd dispensary nationwide from the sounds of it. All right, and what do we have left? New Texas bill would legalize cannabis for everyone 21 and older. Texas is the one last big U.S. state that I think people have forgotten about. And once this does end up seeing, prohibition end and some sort of legalization, I think this would be huge. So just sharing it. Again, not much yet. While there was a poll recently out of University of Houston that highlighted that, a large majority of adults support it, this bill at least would allow local governments to regulate cannabis businesses within their jurisdictions. It would place a possession limit of 2 ounces of dried flower and up to 15 grams of concentrates, with sales taxed at 10%. So, hey, that's promising. 10 is a lot lower than we're seeing out of some other states. So we will let you know how that develops over the year. But man, that would be a massive ball to start rolling. While from Canavesting, just figured I would share this. Trump's nominee for the Department of Labor is a cannabis business owner. So that's promising. More promising than not, I would say. Let me know what you think in the comments. And this is as of February 18th. And I do believe he was also going to appoint someone, was it drug czar or pardon czar or something? Someone who has been a past offender, maybe cannabis related. I didn't look into it that deeply, but all that to say, the signs are there, the writing's on the wall. We were just forced to wait longer than we wanted to. What else is new? It's not fun to be so early, but we are. And so with that, last but not least, I found this slick chart, which essentially highlights what we've gone through and what's possibly to come. And I don't know about you, but this to me, again, just screams opportunity. Hence why I'm not selling my bags, because why would I? I'd either sell for massive loss, or they could be worth something in the future when the discrepancy is just so large that investors in the overall market can't ignore it anymore. And obviously what would help that is fixing the plumbing issues, getting these companies off of the pink sheets and onto major U.S. exchanges and being considered legit U.S. businesses as opposed to the discrimination that only this industry faces. All that to say, from MJ Biz Daily, why 2025 could be a banner year for us investors. Well, because 2024 wasn't, and because 2023 wasn't, and because 2022 wasn't. The potential for federal reform creates a significant upside the day that ever ends up happening. But of course, the day we get a sniff of it happening, some people with a lot more money and a lot more investment know-how are going to know before us, and the signs will likely be there. Safe banking or rescheduling would act as catalysts, further legitimizing the industry and ending the unfair, blatant, un-American discrimination that only this industry faces, and opening doors to institutional capital, which has largely remained on the sideline. Cannabis 3.0 will be when we get the green light to go from pink sheets to major U.S. exchanges, and that institutional capital can flow in. That is what I'm waiting for. That's why I won't sell my bags. Let me know what you think in the comments. While the combination of favorable valuations, disciplined operators, and potential legislative breakthroughs sets the stage for outsized returns. And if there was any American president that was for American companies and wants to help those built in America, making America safer, and helping combat the opioid epidemic, the biggest public health victory no one wants to talk about is when you end cannabis prohibition. All this points to, think about this big rush we saw in 2020 when the market went from 12 to 16 billion. Well, what about this fucking discrepancy right here? So, hey, call me crazy, but I'm not selling my bags, and I'm looking forward to a good year. And so a bit more here. If you believe that we're at an inflection point, let me know what you think in the comments. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you want to see any future ones. And I'll catch you at some point in March to recap Q whatever earnings from the MSOs. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.